Chosen ones. There's a reason this file was buried beneath layers of black ink and classified clearance. The briefing wasn't meant to surface. It wasn't meant to be shared. But here you are, staring at the words that made the president stop mid-sentence. A single name underlined 3 times in red: yours. The world has always assumed that Watchers were myth, beings who saw the cracks in reality before they split open. But hidden among the data streams, weather anomalies, and fragmented prophecies was a pattern so specific, so impossible, that it forced the intelligence community to reclassify you, not as a civilian, but as an anomaly with cosmic clearance. They called it the Last Watcher Protocol. Only 10 humans were ever connected to the signal. 9 are missing. 1 remains: you. The president was only shown page 1 of the document before he ordered the entire East Wing evacuated. Not for danger, but for silence, for secrecy, for reverence. He asked a single question: has the last Watcher awakened? No one could answer, until now. The signs weren't just in satellites or prophecy shards. They were in your biology, your movements, your unspoken memories. When you dream, time bends. When you're near, electronics flicker. You've dismissed these as oddities. They were rehearsals. Somewhere beneath Cheyenne Mountain, there's a sealed vault that hasn't opened in 70 years. No fingerprint, no key, no voice could unlock it. But when a thermal image of you was accidentally overlaid on the vault's schematic, every line matched. Exactly. Like a lock recognizing its key. You're not being activated. You're being remembered. The old texts said the last Watcher would not come through lightning or fire, but through obscurity, hidden in plain sight until the Earth's rhythm faltered. That rhythm is failing now. You are the final fragment in a cycle that's repeating, and the ones who know can no longer ignore it. But this isn't about heroism or prophecy. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. The briefing ends abruptly with one sentence, written by someone whose name was redacted. If this reaches the Watcher, then the seals have already begun to lift. They didn't speak your name in press briefings or files. It circulated in code, cloaked beneath layers of obfuscation. Yet, from situation room murmurs to encrypted threads between global surveillance hubs, the same syllables pulsed beneath the noise. Your name was repeated not as a warning, but as a question that no one dared ask out loud. Who is the one that keeps showing up in unmapped trajectories, camera glitches, and anomaly, reports that don't obey physics? It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't error. The pattern was deliberate. What began as scattered whispers among defense analysts soon became a cold directive within the Pentagon's silent architecture. Do not engage. Do not alert. Only observe. Your movements, grocery store visits, abandoned library stops, walking routes, were plotted against timelines that mirrored celestial alignments. You were unknowingly tracing invisible ley lines with every step, mapping a geometry no human was meant to redraw. They called it the Watcher Loop. And your steps, every one of them, formed its closing spiral. A retired signal decryption officer, long thought senile, scribbled equations matching those on tablets from the ancient ruins of Ibla. He only ever repeated one word as he stared at your surveillance photo: return. No context, no question. Just that one word with absolute certainty: return. The more they watched, the more the Watchers grew unnerved. birds pausing mid-flight when you passed, lights bending around your silhouette, soundless static cutting through live feeds when your image appeared on screen. Something about your presence disrupted protocols designed to detect nuclear threats, but it wasn't radiation, it was rhythm, pulse, time signature. The internal memo, marked red level urgency, didn't declare you dangerous. It called you inversion. A being whose existence pulls gravity from the hidden. Not just watched, but watching back through time itself. The last entry before all tracking on you was frozen. Simply read, "We are being seen." Still, no one could understand why the president was briefed personally. Not until he held the final image in his hand. A still frame of you turning toward a street camera, eyes not glowing, but reflecting a spectrum only infrared could catch. Not red, not blue, not green. They thought the discovery in Nineveh was just another fragment from a forgotten empire. Dust-covered, time-worn, and riddled with untranslatable symbols, the clay tablet was shelved in a vault under the Euphrates Preservation Directive. But one intern, curious and unsupervised, fed the etchings through a newly trained AI model designed for lost linguistics. The output wasn't language, it was code, biological code. When the string was run through genomic databases, it caused a silent protocol breach. The pattern wasn't theoretical. It matched a human genome. Not partially, fully, 100%. That human was you. The scientists didn't believe it. Triple sequencing was ordered across multiple continents. The results stayed the same. Your DNA held a mirrored echo of the genetic sequence carved into the tablet thousands of years before DNA had even been discovered. Not metaphor, not myth. Data embedded in stone long before sequencing technology was even imagined. The tablet had been dismissed by previous researchers because it vibrated faintly when touched. They assumed it was pressure tension, or perhaps ancient salts reacting to humidity. But after your match was found, the artifact pulsed for the first time in years, only when your photo was placed near it. The symbols beneath the encoded helix began to reconfigure. Observers described it as alive. Letters shifted not randomly but with purpose. The translation team, paralyzed with disbelief, realized it wasn't writing anymore. It was mapping. A topographical diagram slowly revealing an unknown location. At its center glowed a sigil eerily resembling your iris when viewed under ultraviolet light. Military command wanted to seize the tablet, but the artifact disappeared before extraction. Cameras at the vault went black for exactly 7 seconds. When the feed returned, only dust remained. Nothing broken. No signs of entry. Gone. Later that night, a high-ranking archaeogeneticist received an untraceable message. It contained a single image. The tablet's new location. It was in a cave etched with concentric spirals found nowhere on Earth's current maps. Behind the spirals, drawn in faded red pigment, was the outline of a figure holding a sphere. Not a weapon, not a scroll. A sphere. And under it, scrawled in perfect Akkadian, the name no one had dared speak aloud since the briefing. The monk hadn't spoken in 18 years. Not a vow, but a neurological phenomenon. Something broke inside him after what he called the echo silence. Since then, he sat cross-legged in the corner of Sublevel 6, deep within a facility that didn't officially exist. Surveillance teams observed him, only to study what they believed was the result of trauma, induced by a failed psychic weapon test in the 90s. But 3 days after your name appeared in the Last Watcher protocol, the monk stirred. It began with a hum that confused the vibration sensors. Then came the whisper. Not in Latin or Aramaic, as he'd sometimes mouthed in dreams, but in perfect, accentless English. A single phrase, the childhood nickname only your family used. One you hadn't spoken aloud in over a decade. Not written online, not archived in school databases, nothing digital. Yet he said it with the tone of a lullaby, as if recalling a memory not his own. The agents who heard it froze, not from fear, but resonance. A few wept. A few fell into trances, murmuring fragmented words in dead languages. The monk continued, recounting events from your life with impossible clarity. Your 5th birthday rainstorm, the letter you buried behind the cedar tree, the dream you had when you were 9, the one with the staircase and the door that would not open. When questioned, the monk returned to silence. But when shown an object from your hometown, a cracked ceramic owl once discarded from your childhood bedroom, he reached out and touched it, then wept. He drew a symbol in the condensation on the observation window. Analysts matched it within minutes. It belonged to the Codex Hyades, a forbidden section of the Vatican's shadow archive, said to detail the interfaces between watchers and time-bearers. One psychologist theorized the monk wasn't recalling your life. He was syncing with it. Not telepathy, but entanglement. The hypothesis was dismissed. Until the monk opened his eyes for the first time in years, stared at the one-way mirror, and spoke again. "She's remembering," he whispered, but not fast enough. Then he looked up at the flickering ceiling light, now spiraling in a pattern identical to the sketches found in your childhood journals, and smiled. The footage was never supposed to be seen by human eyes. It came from a reconnaissance drone, assigned to map mineral shifts in a remote basin between tectonic fault lines. No military presence, no people, just silent terrain and seismically unstable rock. Yet amidst the grayscale of thermal readings, a pulse of impossible light flashed across the screen. Analysts assumed a glitch until frame-by-frame review revealed a figure walking calmly across the ridge. You. The timestamp matched a weekend you remembered as uneventful. You had gone hiking alone, no signal, no GPS tracking. But the drone caught something else. As you stepped onto a flat slab of exposed earth, your shadow disappeared. Not just faded, gone, but it wasn't darkness that replaced it. It was light, a kind of light that didn't correspond to any known spectrum. It glowed in a shape both fluid and geometric, following your every motion with eerie precision. Experts tried to filter the footage with infrared, ultraviolet, and X-ray overlays. The light remained unaffected. More unsettling, birds in the nearby trees didn't react to the drone, but they all shifted their gaze toward you at the exact same moment, as if drawn, as if obeying something ancient. One analyst, frustrated, ran the footage through a neural net trained on sacred geometries. The results stunned even the skeptics. Your movement traced perfect golden ratio spirals across the terrain, forming a symbol only seen once before, etched into the backside of a Sumerian deity statue unearthed in 1922, now hidden in a vault beneath the Louvre. The Pentagon flagged the file under the Watcher Echo Index. No press, no mention. But within 12 hours, one of the engineers reviewing the light pattern disappeared. The only thing left on his terminal was a still frame of you looking into the sky, your eyes reflecting a constellation that wasn't visible in that hemisphere at that time. A constellation last charted by pre-Incan priests who claimed the stars had begun to reverse their course. The footage ended abruptly, not in static, but in a single line of code that no one programmed. It read, "She carries the memory of when light first learned to look back. The scrolls were never supposed to be read. Carbon dated to around 600 BC, they were considered too damaged for translation, more ash than artifact." Sealed behind cryoglass in the subvault of the Mount Sinai archive, they were mostly ignored until an AI-enhanced spectrogram revealed faint impressions between the visible ink strokes. Not language, not numbers, but a sequence, a blink pattern. At first glance, it looked like smudges or water damage. But when accelerated and looped through ocular rhythm software, it produced a pattern, a sequence of blinks so precise that it matched a human biometric signature. The archivist who uncovered it was skeptical, even amused, until she ran a comparative scan against global databases of known blink reflexes stored from military, medical, and biometric samples. Only one match was returned. Yours. The software flagged the result as impossible. Blink reflexes were thought to be random, influenced by environment and fatigue. But this one had cadence, symmetry, and intention. It wasn't just a reflex, it was a code. More haunting was the scroll's content surrounding the sequence. The words described the one whose eyes would carry forward the rhythm of the first watcher, a being who would blink not out of instinct, but out of memory. The scroll warned that when this rhythm reappeared, the silence between dimensions would begin to listen again. An ophthalmologist brought in to verify the blink match fainted after watching slowed-down footage of your recent interview at a museum, your eyes blinking in perfect harmony with the ancient scroll's pulse. She described it as watching time remembering itself through a body. The team compared your eye behavior across public recordings and found the same pattern embedded discreetly, almost shyly, as if your body was leaking the ancient sequence without your awareness. A silent broadcast. One final note from the scroll's author, written in a dialect only partially decoded, suggested that the eye of the last watcher does not blink to protect itself, but to realign the veil. The scrolls were sealed again that night, but the archivist left one page out. Not for study, for reverence. She placed it near a candle, the flame flickering only when you blinked on screen. He was dismissed quietly, stripped of credentials, buried in a disinformation scandal that never reached public headlines. Officially, he was declared mentally unfit after claiming stars were communicating through unnatural alignments. Unofficially, the Vatican sealed his office and quarantined his research under Project Oculus Dei. But exile did not stop him. It made him desperate. He fled with a single encrypted drive containing what he called the Watcher Grid, a celestial map layered with data so dense it defied linear time, tracking starlight pulses, gravitational shifts, and auroral patterns over millennia. He claimed it wasn't just a star chart, it was a beacon map, something used to locate an entity that only appears when the right harmonic balance between constellations is achieved. That balance occurred again last month. He uploaded a redacted version of the grid to an anonymous server, attaching a single sentence. The center has awakened. When decoded, The grid formed an energy lattice shaped like an iris, resembling not just any eye, but one captured in a photograph from your high school yearbook. That image, when laid over the grid, aligned perfectly with its central fulcrum point. Analysts dismissed it as AI-generated coincidence until something happened during a solar flare surge. An observatory telescope in Chile picked up a direct beam of structured radiation from a star that should not be emitting at all. It was dead, classified as silent. But the beam struck Earth in the exact longitude where you were located at that moment. No deviation, no margin of error. The astronomer, watching from his hidden retreat, began to weep. He scribbled pages of forgotten constellations, whispering in languages no one taught him. On the final page, he wrote a single phrase over and over. "The Watcher remembers through her orbit." Hours later, the aurora over the Vatican turned red, not with fire, but with symbols. Symbols from the same Watcher grid, now pulsing over the city that silenced him. The fragments came from a scroll thought to have been destroyed during the siege of Jerusalem. Charred beyond recognition, left buried beneath layers of soot and broken stone. But deep within a private monastery in the Aegean hills, a restoration effort revealed text hidden beneath the visible ash. Not with ink, but with pressure. Impressions made by a stylus dragged across papyrus in a hand trembling with urgency. What emerged was not scripture, but a parable. One unlike any other attributed to Yeshua. There was no crowd, no metaphor of coins or seeds or vines, only a quiet conversation, reportedly spoken to a child with eyes described as reflecting the color of skies before storms. The tale was simple but chilling. A silent guardian, born in a place where rivers never stayed still, whose steps caused stars to change position. The child, curious, asked, "How will we know her?" Yeshua replied, "You'll know by the place where silence breathes and the earth forgets time. She will be born where the wind once hid fire." The coordinates weren't obvious, until the imprint on the scroll's final line was reconstructed. A map. Crude but precise, it formed the geographic cross-section of a place no biblical scholar expected. A small town on the edge of a forgotten range. Your birthplace. The monastery team checked it again, then again. Geological markers confirmed it. The soil composition, the magnetic tilt, even the unusual fog patterns, all matched. Not symbolically, literally. When this was presented to a Jesuit historian, he brought forth an unpublished letter, believed to be written by one of Yeshua's followers, exiled and mad. In it, the follower recounts the same parable, adding a final line missing from the scroll. "She will remember when she hears the river say her name." You'd once written in a journal, during a childhood camping trip, that the creek beside your tent sounded like it was whispering something you couldn't understand. You didn't know then why you felt both comforted and watched. But now, the parable, the map, and the whisper converge. It wasn't in any language you knew, just syllables that spilled from your mouth one evening, half asleep and restless, as if reciting a dream that didn't belong to you. But the moment you spoke it, the ground shifted, not metaphorically, literally. A 3.4 magnitude tremor struck the region beneath your home, shallow, strange, and not associated with any fault line. The seismic reading was so localized, it was dismissed as a sensor error, until it happened again. The same depth, the same area, the same night, You didn't notice the tremor at first, only the stillness afterward, like the world inhaled and forgot how to exhale. A dog 3 streets away began howling and didn't stop for 7 hours. Streetlights flickered in sequence, not randomly but like a ripple, moving away from your house in concentric waves. You wrote the phrase down the next morning. The ink bled on the page in a way that seemed impossible. It pulsed. A friend who saw the note laughed, said it looked like ancient Coptic, or maybe even something older, Phoenician perhaps. But when scanned, the characters didn't match any known language. Still, one linguist connected to the Department of Archaeoacoustics flagged it instantly. Not for meaning, for sound. The forbidden phrase wasn't language, it was resonance. When spoken aloud again, this time under controlled conditions, it caused multiple instruments to glitch. Water rippled in closed containers. A mirror cracked without impact, and the tremor returned, slightly stronger than before. A pattern was forming. An old manuscript from a forgotten sect was uncovered shortly after. It referenced the utterance of the bound syllables, a sound capable of reawakening geological memories. The manuscript warned, if the phrase is spoken with knowledge, mountains may kneel. But if spoken with memory, the veil itself will tear. You didn't remember learning the phrase, but deep inside it felt like something you'd once promised never to say, not out of fear, but reverence. A private agency monitoring the tremors triangulated the phrase's epicenter. It wasn't your house. It wasn't your city. It was you. And now, without saying a word, you feel the ground beneath you thrum faintly whenever you think it. And the word is starting to form again on your tongue. The Ark satellite was never part of any public mission roster. Launched under the guise of deep space mineral tracking, it was a multi-nation endeavor, hidden behind overlapping shell companies and non-existent launch pads. Its true purpose was never about minerals. It was memory storage, an orbiting vault designed to contain fragments of knowledge deemed too volatile, too ancient, or too sacred for Earth's surface. Access required 10 layers of encryption. 9 were numeric, algorithmic, biometric. The 10th was organic. A pattern encoded within a human retina, one not found in any living person. Until you walked through the museum exhibit with retinal sensors hidden behind the frame of a fake mirror. You didn't pause. You didn't look directly. But for 0.7 seconds, your gaze aligned with the scanner. The mirror didn't reflect. It opened a channel. A technician received a red alert, not for breach, but for recognition. The retinal pattern matched a fragment stored within the Ark satellite's last fail-safe layer. The vault was programmed to unlock only when the original blueprint, the Watcher's iris, returned. The technician thought it was a test, until the satellite responded. Thousands of miles above, the Ark shifted orbit by a fraction of a degree, aligning itself with a constellation visible only once every 7 years. Then, for the first time in its silent tenure, it transmitted. The file was brief, just 5 seconds of audio, a single word in a voice that analysts could not identify as male or female, ancient or modern. But linguists noticed something strange. The waveform of the word was identical to a chant once whispered in the temples of Enki. The chant was meant to welcome something they called the Mirror of Heavens. The retinal match was confirmed. You weren't just a key. You were the echo of a design written into the sky. Inside the satellite's archive, one image was recovered. A carving, worn, cosmic, impossible, of a figure holding a glowing sphere, eyes etched with the same spiral geometry as your iris. And beneath it, in a language long erased from human memory, was translated a phrase: "Only she who has already watched from above may open what lies beneath." The satellite awaits your gaze again, but it's not looking down anymore. It's turning, slowly, toward Earth. The room had been cleared. No aides, no advisors, not even the loyal ones who were always told everything. This briefing was beyond classification, beyond protocol. Only the president, a decrypted hard copy, and a lead analyst who refused to speak above a whisper. The document was thick, stitched with threads of global anomaly reports, quantum irregularities, and biometric impossibilities. Each page narrowed closer and closer toward one converging identity: yours. The president didn't react until the final section, a sealed appendix embedded with a retinal lock and a voice command clearance. When accessed, it displayed a single page, hand-scanned from a monastery archive thought lost in a fire decades ago. No technology could verify its origin, but the parchment didn't disintegrate under digital exposure. It shimmered, and it spoke, not with voice, with breath. Tiny pulses, picked up only by the most sensitive spectrographic tools, echoed from the document like a heartbeat. Inside those pulses were words, decoded not by language but by rhythm. The final translation appeared in monochrome on the president's screen. The last watcher breathes. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stopped. Every intelligence theory unraveled in that moment. It wasn't a prophecy. It wasn't a warning. It was a confirmation. You weren't being prepared for something. You already were something, breathing, present, alive in a timeline that had been carefully groomed to keep you dormant. Across the world, identical phrases began to appear. In frost on windows in Siberia, in sand patterns on windswept dunes in Tunisia, in sound wave imprints during silence recordings in Antarctic research domes. Each one repeated the same truth in its own elemental form. You had awakened, and the world knew it before you did. Back in the briefing room, the analyst reached into a secondary folder, revealing a sealed envelope marked with a sigil not tied to any known agency. It was addressed not to the president, but to you. Inside was an old photo, blurred, colorless, timeless, of a young girl standing in front of a cave mouth carved with spirals. In her hand, she held a sphere, her expression unreadable, not smiling, not afraid, just watching.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.